Welcome, everybody, to the weekly We Are J6 live stream. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us, for spending your time on this Saturday afternoon with the group here. We're very grateful for the support we have in this J6 community and that we're continuing to build. And we're excited for the discussion we have lined up for you guys today. Joining us today, along with Dr. Gold, is Nick Searcy, well known in the J6 community, and also Brian Mock, J6 political prisoner, political hostage in the original DC Gulag class. And so we're going to begin today, as we always do, by inviting God into this space and into this nation, just recognizing the unbelievable once in a millennia opportunity we have to completely revive this nation from the inside out. That really is our true goal. So with that, we will pray. Heavenly Father, we invite you, God. We acknowledge you. We recognize you as God. You are in control. All of this exists because of you. All of this is made possible only by your power, your strength, and your grace, your mercy, and your goodness. So we recognize that. We thank you for that. God, we ask you for your continued grace, for your continued mercies, for your divine providence, divinely in a supernatural way beyond what anyone here is capable of in their own human capacity, certainly myself. God, that you would fill us with your Holy Spirit, with wisdom, with compassion, with strength and bravery, and again with wisdom. God, we ask you especially for an extra measure of wisdom as we navigate very turbulent times and very complicated issues. We know that many people in the J6 community are still hurting deeply, and we are genuinely grieved by this and committed to inviting your supernatural strength and healing into their lives and into this situation. God, because we believe in healing, that you are a God of healing. We're asking for you to make good on that promise, to be faithful to your word as we turn away from our former wicked ways, as it says in 2 Chronicles, and commit to your ways, God. And so we ask all of these things in our Heavenly Father's name. Amen.
Amen.
So thank you for participating in that mindset and that value, that we are one nation under God. That is more than just the pledge that we are supposed to authentically commit to, but it is my true personal belief. It underlines everything that I think and do. And that's, I think, consistent for everyone speaking here today. And I hope and believe it is the spirit of the entire community and the movement that we're participating in. We've talked over the last number of weeks about many different things in terms of defining the mission and the purpose of this group. We are J6. We are literally J6ers, both defendants and advocates. And we are committed to delivering restorative justice through victim recovery and government accountability. So we've been discussing what that means, what that looks like, and how can we actually execute on that? How can we be successful in achieving our mission? I'm going to ask, normally I start with Dr. Gold to kind of give a summary of where we have been over the last week. But Brian is under a bit of a time crunch. So we'll go ahead and ask Brian to speak first. He has some interesting ideas and perspectives on the government accountability portion particularly. But Brian, I'll just ask you to both at least briefly comment on both the victim recovery side and the government accountability side, chiefly from the perspective that both lanes require an immense amount of solidarity and unification of the J6 defendant class specifically, and the advocate class as general public supporters, but they will follow the defendants. So we want to see the defendants unify and operate in a strategic and a wise manner. So with that, please go forward, Brian. We appreciate you being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So I've been on a couple of these on the other side of this. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. And So just, I want to give you guys a quick background for any of those that don't know me in the community. I was arrested back in 2021. Um, I was one of the original 45 that got thrown in the DC Gulag. Was in there and tortured by our government. I've seen the absolute worst of the worst that our government could throw at us. So, it was at CPAC here, heard a little bit of it on Steve Bannon there. So, what I have done since getting out in January, so I was actually got resentenced January 3rd. This is going to be very important as we go forward because there's some major things that happened in my hearing. I was the very first and only person who has had a hearing with the First Step Act. In that, because as many of you know, the government has kept, the BOP has been keeping people illegally held for months and years longer than they should, not properly utilizing the First Step Act. So people have been trying to get this in front of the courts for 6 years. All of them have been shut down for one reason or another. At the end of the day, I managed to get it in front of a judge using the 1512. I backdoored it, got in for resentencing, and argued the FSA. The DOJ came in and admitted that they knew that thousands of people were being held illegally, and that they told the judge they had no jurisdiction in the case because it was an internal bureaucratic issue within the BOP, and that if the judge ruled on it, that it would create a Pandora's box that literally would allow thousands of people to then flood the courts and seek relief. And for that reason, the judge couldn't rule on it. Well, he did rule on it, and he ruled in my favor, and he gave me time served. Every prisoners' rights, prison reform group that I've talked to since then is like, yeah, we know all the things you said. But then when I got to the hearing part, they lost their mind and went, holy crap, they actually said the quiet part out loud. They incriminated the DOJ, the BOP, and the courts in this. This is a huge deal. So this is one avenue. When I got out and was pardoned on the 20th, I took a couple days to regroup. Me and my girlfriend jumped in a vehicle and we simply said, God, send us where we need to go. I have been a strong advocate for an actual investigation into January 6th, and that we absolutely need to be at the center of that. We have a ton of people who have done nothing but research. We have seen videos that nobody else has ever seen. We've seen evidence that nobody else has ever seen. I've spoken with members of Congress. When I say God has been at work for the last 4 weeks, actually less than that, 3 weeks, that me and my girlfriend have been on the road. When I can tell the full story, it will blow everyone away. He has dropped people in line for us that are opening doors. I can't go into all the details right now because there's official things that need to be done. But what I can say is very soon, we are going to get the wish list of everything that we have wanted and needed as a community. So now more than ever, we do need to unite. I've been saying the same thing from the moment that I got in the gulag. When I first found out that there were other J6ers there, I thought I was all alone when they kidnapped me and transported me across the country. So the second that I found out there was more of us there and I got together, I've been fighting not just for me, but for everybody in this. So we have a potential, an opportunity here, unlike anything that the average citizen has seen, definitely in our lifetime. So it can't be squandered. We need to do a couple of things. What I've saw in CPAC is there are people that are hurting. We know this. I'm one of them. They've wiped me out completely. Despite that, I'm out here fighting and doing what I need to do to make sure that this moves forward properly. I don't even know how to say this diplomatically. Any of us, some people in our community need to learn how to conduct themselves in public. Let's just be real. I think we've pussyfooted around that for far too long. Those that can't, we need to distance ourselves from that. So I get that people need to blow off some steam. I get that people are hurting. I get that people are suffering from PTSD. I'm one of them. However, we're under a microscope right now, and we need people coming together. We need to grab those people who are hurting that you see Each one of us has our own little sphere of influence and friends. We need to pull those people together. If we have people on the fringes, we need to set egos aside. We need to set the stupid bickering aside that has been going on for the last 4 years, and we need to unite in a real and meaningful way. To that end, I've put myself in a position. I'll be able to announce further where that comes officially, but I'm working not only with John and Dr. Gold here and others in the community. I've got Condemned USA. I've got Stop Hate. I've got everybody that's the who's who, Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, um, everyone that matters in this community. I have a pretty good relationship with. Those that I don't, it's being fostered. I think everybody who knows me at this point knows that I can be trusted. I'm a fighter. I won't ever say anything that's going to compromise anyone or this group. So what we are pulling together right now is the investigative body that represents Jan Sixers. We have the people I'm working with right now have the mechanisms in place, both legally, structurally. We have the databases, we have the computers that are not going to be hacked because we've been through this. We have military people that are working on this. Um, when the time comes, there's certain people that are within this group and other organizations that we will be pulling together. We have at least a couple dozen Jan Sixers and investigators that we have. We will be in a position to work basically as an NGO. So we will be able to put bids in to work as an investigative body with the government. So as things start progressing, if you can read between the lines, we can get funded from the government to go forward and start moving on this. That's the mechanisms that we're putting in place right now. Once things can be announced, I will for sure be back on here and announce everything that we need. In the short term, what people really need to be doing right now is what you guys have been calling for. Bring forward your testimonies, bring forward evidence, bring what you can to the table so that when we're able to go live, um, we have the people, the investigators in place. We have some of those are working with AI. We are going to be able to process through this information rapidly at a level that nobody's really been able to do yet. That includes previous investigators, previous lawyers. I've watched it in real time, multiple AIs working through um, people's court cases. They compare it. They start ratcheting out in a matter of minutes all the issues with judge bias, everything illegal that the lawyers have done, everything that your lawyer has done to screw you up, every place that you have been violated in your rights. This all comes out. It tells you in a nice, neat little package and includes the next steps that should be taken in this. It's absolutely beautiful. So we're working with the technology. We are going to have this literally 1,600 cases, all have gone through. I assure you, all 1,600 of us, whoever wants to, will have an opportunity to come forward and speak. We are going to put this all. This is all going to go in front of the American people in a real and meaningful way that is going to have teeth. It's all coming from the legal standpoint as well. Um, you guys have been talking about this. You've seen certain lawyers come forward publicly. I've stood with them up on TV. The discussions that we've had with this, we're working right now to get basically a list of all the ways that people have been injured within this. So there will be some point we'll have this mechanism that it's going to have. Here's all the ways that all these Jan Sixers have been damaged. We'll be able to go through the checkbox and go, this has happened to me, this happened to me, this doesn't apply to me, this doesn't apply to me. And so we'll have those lawyers will have in a database exactly the injuries, what dollar amounts look like on that. This stuff I think is going to move forward in a pretty rapid way once it starts flowing. So there's some good things coming. I know John and Dr. Gold have talked a little more with those lawyers than I have. I'm comfortable in what I've heard. I think there's never going to be a perfect solution legally and with restitution. I think we come together as a community. We discuss those things. We decide where we need to be and how. And there's people that are hurting really bad right now. And one of the things that I think needs to be balanced out is that there's those of us who want full retribution, and I understand that. I think there is some discretion that should be had and some understanding, at least the discussion had that there are people who are hurting really bad right now and can't make it years. And if the decision is made that we need to keep fighting this thing longer and longer, and that that's a better course, we have to have real discussions about how we're taking care of those people in the short term. So all of that comes back to the same thing. We need to be pulling together in a real and meaningful way and stop any of the stupid bickering that's gone on. Any of the ego stuff needs to be checked at the door. We do definitely need to pull more and more people together. If that isn't right here and we are J6, it needs to be, we need to be pulling them together somewhere, whether it's one of the other organizations there or just reach out. Or anybody can reach out to me at any point. I'll make sure they're getting plugged in somewhere. And people have been doing that. So I encourage everyone here, if they go, look, what can I do to help? Start putting yourself out there on X, encourage people to come forward, start that dialogue. Because, Dr. Gold, John can't possibly help everyone that needs to be helped, can't reach out to every single one. I can't reach out to every single one. But if they come to me, I will make sure people don't fall through the cracks. I make sure that they're getting to where they need to get to. We've got a great network, and my job right now, as I see it, is to float amongst all of those groups, get to the powers that be, make sure this investigation is going to where it needs to be, and getting people's information into that system so that we can run it effectively. And it's going to be awesome, folks. The stuff that I can't announce yet, when it comes, believe me, I walked off the hill the other day, grinning ear to ear, and we had the conversation that this is going to be bigger than what we ever thought it could be. So hang
That's
tight,
amazing.
it's coming. So
That's
anything
amazing,
else,
Brian.
you
Yeah,
guys?
so glad to hear that. I hope you can hear me. I've got background noise here, but I just wanted to thank confirm what you're saying, Brian, about first of all recognizing that we have a fundamental obligation and loyalty to a singular value, which is the rule of law. Um, Patriots on January 6, 2021, showed up in Washington, D.C., such that they were tragically and unforeseeably entrapped and targeted, unfortunately. They chose to be there that day for the exact value of upholding rule of law. So we cannot therefore contradict ourselves with this antithetical, um, unfortunate behaviors at some points, um, acting in a clearly unlawful and disrespectful manner. So we just want to be very cognizant of that. Thank you for speaking to that. And in terms of discord or factions and so forth, some of that's just natural and inevitable. That's not really necessarily a problem. But you said that you hope that there's a place that everyone can come to. This group was formed by 4 real J6ers from various different angles that understand the big picture of what's going on and feel called and obligated to lead in trying to form an umbrella, um, a unifying group to involve and incorporate all the various J6ers and all the various organizations that are doing the various niche things that they are most um, qualified and positioned to succeed in doing. So we had Dennis Evans with Condemned USA on last week. Previously had David Summerall with Help Stop Hate, and so on and so forth. Jenny Cudd with J6 We're Home, Sarah Maccabee, the list goes on and on. So we're going to continue to invite and platform and unify and support all of these various groups. Brian, yourself included, Nick Searcy, your work, of course, included. But I really do want to encourage people and really urge them to see and understand we are J6 as the for lack of a better word, meta, meta world, or the umbrella of all J6ers. There really isn't another purpose for We Are J6 other than that. We don't quite have the specialty operation that Brian is talking about on investigations, or that Trennis has been doing on a lot of legal briefing and supporting, and that David Summerall has been doing on documentarian investigative activities, all of which are critical. So We Are J6 is this concept that we're stronger together, of course, e pluribus unum. And so we want to bring everyone together with those strengths and expertises, and combine our resources and coordinate, because wisdom and strategy is essential, particularly at this moment and in this situation. So, Brian, if you had any other closing comments on what you said, let me know. I just want to kind of reiterate that what you're doing is one of many different elements that we're trying to kind of sew all together here. Dr. Gold will speak more about the legal angle on restitution, because we do have some really strong developments there. But of course, we have always been saying that restorative justice, starts with restitution in terms of victim recovery, but needs to go far beyond that. We owe it to the victims. We owe it to ourselves as January 6th defendants who have been insanely harmed by our own government. We owe it to ourselves to make sure that government accountability is a real thing that happens. But the entire country needs this, even those who haven't been personally directly affected by J6 persecution. So that's the overall mission here, and this is just a part of connecting all those pieces. So thank you for your information, Brian. First of all, thank you for being the warrior, the patriot, and the survivor that you are. Um, Brian will be able to share more over the coming weeks, as will many other J6ers, about the specific details of how they have been persecuted, what they are still enduring. This is happening to all of us in various ways, but we want to hear this and we want to share this because the country needs to hear it and understand it. But yeah, Brian, if you have anything to say before I know you need to be moving.
Brian, one thing, just so you know, somebody asked for your contact information, and if
Oh,
you'd like to give it, please give it, and if not,
yeah.
we'll forward it from the defendant email.
Yeah, anybody feel free to give out my info. I'm not worried about any. Actually, anybody wants to come at me, I welcome it at this point. So,
Brian, if you say your email, I will type it into the group chat.
perfect. Yep, real easy one. It's PPOW1621 at Gmail. So hit me up with
And
that anytime. And I'm fine with anybody giving out my number as well. So feel free to text me. You can hit me up on X as well. It's at Brian Mock, PPOW. Definitely message me through there. Actually, probably easier than even phone. Hit me up on X. That'll get to me quick, and I'll respond on that.
And just a reminder for everyone, We Are J6 is on X. You may be watching the stream through that platform right now. It's at We Are J6 Alliance on the X platform. We're also on YouTube at We Are J6. And we are also on Telegram at We Are J6 with a chat group, so we can coordinate that way. Dr. Gold, Brian did mention some very interesting comments about the usage of AI and other tools, and people putting in effort right now to coordinate how to capture and utilize all the various information from transcripts and other forms of evidence to advance things like government accountability related to prosecutorial misconduct and rogue judges, etc. So Brian, Dr. Gold may have missed that, but she's been very hot on some of those issues, and has spoken the last few weeks about those things. So you can comment further if you wish, but before you go, I just wanted to have you speak to the group for this coming week. What can the We Are J6 community be thinking about, be researching, and be doing to advance those causes? And how can they further connect with We Are J6, for example, on the X platform? I want to encourage everyone, first of all, follow the X profiles of the speakers on the panel, of course, and but also make sure we're following and tagging at We Are J6 Alliance on X, so that we can see what you guys are working on and stories that need to be promoted, and coordinate all these things in that manner. But go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is, we don't let off the gas on what we've always said. We want the truth out there. Above and beyond anything, we want public, every video, every piece of evidence. Every Jan 6er I've ever talked to has said the same thing. If we could forego restitution and just get the truth out there, I think to a man or woman, if that's the burden that we had to bear to finally bring the truth about how our government operates and what they actually did to us, so be it.
Truth comes first. Yeah, agreed.
Yep. So I think everything else falls in line. So what we can do as a community is keep hammering that, keep that going forward. That we need the truth out there. We need real investigations. That we need to be at the center of that. We're working on it. That's coming. It's going to come sooner than you know. But we keep that down because that needs to be forefront in people's thought process. We don't need to be pushed to the back burner anymore. We don't need to be forgotten in all this. So evidence that you all have, videos, open source, any of that, keep hammering that stuff on X. Absolutely keep it forefront in people's minds. But more than that, start the process of gathering whatever information you have. I know that you guys have set up for your testimonials. Bring those forward. Those are going to be powerful. You will have an opportunity to bring those in front of the powers that be as well in the near future. But keep those coming forward because as we go through this, there is a PR part of this where we're going to be going through and selecting certain people that we need to highlight because let's be honest, there are more egregious acts that were committed against individuals than others. So not that any one person is better than anyone else. It's just, hey, you're going to put the most egregious stuff forward and in some cases the most sympathetic. So me being a 40 something year old white guy, less sympathy from the left than others out there. So I'm while some horrible crap happened to me, I recognize that maybe I'm not the first person you put forward. So I can set my ego aside, and I would like to think that others can do the same to go, hey, what makes the most sense? So we can't do that. We can't do the things that we need to do from an investigative standpoint or a PR standpoint until we have all that information. So while we know a lot of the cases and we know a lot of the players in this, we don't know all 1,600, and a lot of people have hidden for the last several years for good reason. So we need to start encouraging those people to come forward right here. This is one of the perfect spots for people to come. If they don't feel comfortable with that for any reason, you can send them to me. You can send them to Condemned USA. You can send them to Stop Hate. You send them down to Jenny. Any one of those groups will get back here, right? So if someone doesn't like me, great. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm some people's shot of whiskey. So it all balances out, right? So encourage that, and then just really start gathering together all your information and start thinking about this from a prosecutorial standpoint. We've all been through it. What do you possess that incriminates any group of people, as Dr. Gold has talked about, from prosecutorial misconduct, whatever the judge's bias is, or flat out crimes, FBI misconduct, any of these things through the whole process, day of stuff, things that the police did that we know, pull it together, because you might be surprised. You might have something nobody else has seen. We still, right, as long as we've been doing this, get surprised every day and turn around and go, you have what? This guy did this? I just saw it the other day. One of the most egregious things that I saw all of January 6th, I just found out was a complete setup, because the guy that was getting beat senseless by the police that I built most of my case around, I found out he got up, laughed with the police, and fist bumped him afterwards, and then wandered off. So what you think you might know about January 6th, there's some subtle things you come around and go, holy crap, this just changed my whole perspective. It's far worse than what we all think it is. It's the stuff that I've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, where I was pretty deep in the weeds. it's even worse than what you think.
Yeah.
So I've been
we
privy to
need
some
to keep
things. Yeah.
keep pulling it out of the channels. Absolutely.
Yeah, keep at it. I am going to jump here, guys. I appreciate you having me
Brian.
on. Is there any questions anybody's got quick that I can answer or anything? Nope.
Brian,
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say one thing. I mean, I've met some of the J6ers as they've gotten released after the pardons, and I just want to thank you. I've thanked them, and I thank John and Simone, because what we did that day and what you've been through really saved this country. I don't think we would have President Trump back if we had not gone that day on January 6th. And I know the sacrifices that you've made and the torture that you've been through. And I want you to understand, I'm sure you do, but I want you to know that I'm grateful for that. And your sacrifice was not in vain. We have done a great service to this country by going there on January 6th and bringing attention to what happened that day.
Amen.
Thank you. That means a lot. This has been a pretty cool couple weeks, so I appreciate that. And Nick, we'll have to talk here. Get my info. Hit me up.
Yeah, I will.
We'll do some things.
Okay.
All right, guys. I appreciate you all. Till next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, guys.
Nick, thank you for saying that. That was really powerful. It's absolutely true, but it's quite profound to think about it. It's quite profound to hear you articulate it like that. But please, we appreciate you joining us, spending your time, and please share with the audience your thoughts, your perspective on what's going on right now, and where we're going from here.
Could I, Nick, 1 second?
Yeah.
I'll be really short, Nick. I'm staying on the whole time, but I just think because normally we start with me and people might be thrown off a little bit. If I just do 2 minutes and then the rest is Nick. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, and I want to second John, and I see the makings of another movie in there. I never thought of it quite the way you said it, which is we really had an impact in why we're in a good position now. So that is a beautiful, beautiful thing to have said. I just want to echo a couple things that Brian said. From the legal perspective, I am continuing to gather information from different lawyers. Some of you may have heard things from lawyers. Some of you may have even been contacted by lawyers. Just know that we have been talking to everybody who could be anybody in this fight, and it's very important that we pick kind of like the right team that understands this politically, that understands this is essentially a political solution. You have to craft a legal argument. You have to have a legal complaint to bring the pressure, because you need the vehicle by which you can have a political solution. But you really also need to work with lawyers who don't muck up the whole process with endless legal analysis. It's really a matter of sitting across the table from the right people, and it's taking a little bit of time, but that's a good thing. And I just want to encourage you. Number two, what Brian said, evidence is going to be king. Once me or you or as a group, we pick lawyers to do this, they are going to need evidence from each of us to make the case. That evidence will be used to substantiate your perspective in any legal case, but also in the aggregate. And that brings us to number three. Anything we do, we are stronger together. I want to give an example. Some of you might know the TV show Friends from, I guess, the 90s. It was a hugely successful TV show. Most of you probably know it. So to this day, it's remained one of the most well-paid. The actors have been amongst the most well-paid actors in the business. There were 6 stars, but truly the breakout star was probably Jennifer Aniston, but they all hung together, the 6 of them, and they kept negotiating as a group. And because they negotiated as a group, each of the 6 actors, we're talking about 25 years ago, ended up getting $750,000 an episode. That would never have been possible if they had splintered off, right? They could have shelved one for the other. So our goal is to keep the J6 community together. And even though the example I just gave is about money, we want restitution for people who've really lost a lot of things, but there's things we want that are not financial. We want the government to look at every list that's out there that they've blacklisted us on. We want, as many of you know, the J6 committee members, the Congress people, there's things that together, if we hang together, we can exert far more influence, far more power. And we've gone to great lengths to express to you that we are J6 is to be an inclusive group. And we'll just kind of keep you posted. And that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Please, Nick, please go ahead. Looking forward to you.
Well, I call myself an unprosecuted J6er. I was there that day, and I've still been mystified ever since that why they never came after me. But you know, part of that, what we tried to do with the documentaries that Chris and I made, Chris Burgard, my partner, my whole goal in that was to really humanize the people that they were calling domestic terrorists and you know, insurrectionists and all the bad names that they came up with to try and smear everybody. And so we over the past 4 years, we have probably conducted at least 65 to 70 interviews and compiled a huge amount of footage. And most of them, like I said, it's an attempt to humanize these people and show America exactly, you know, who they are calling these horrible names and whose lives they're destroying and putting them on no-flight lists and all this stuff. So what I'm trying to do right now, I'm sort of talking with a pretty much a film agent that is going to try to get the War on Truth miniseries, the 4-hour miniseries, on some of these platforms, because right now it's available, but you know, it's in that sort of situation where you only are going to run across it if you're already on our side, right? You're only going to find it at His Glory TV if you're a Christian who believes that January 6th was what we know it to have been, a setup. So what I'm doing right now, I'm making a deal with a company that is willing to do this, to try to put the War on Truth miniseries up on Apple TV, up on Amazon, up on, you know, places. I want it to be in places where somebody just sitting on their couch flipping through the channels go, "Hey, what's this? Let's take a look at it." Because I think our show, our series will impact normal Americans who maybe just aren't as steeped in politics and steeped in the news as we are. And they would watch this thing and go, "My God, I did not know that my government was doing this to people." And so that's really, to me, that's always been the goal, is to get it out there where people might just stumble across it and mess up and learn the truth about what happened that day and what happened to all the people that went.
Absolutely imperative, Nick. I think that a major focus of We Are J6 is storytelling and is educating the public, enlightening the nation to the truth of what happened and to the extent of the harm that has resulted. Your work to this point is very well known, but I'll just reiterate that it's phenomenal work and has been incredibly important. We would not be where we are without it. So thank you, Nick, for what you have done and are continuing to do. We certainly, I think, would love to help to amplify the storytelling and the work that you're doing through this group and our channels here. Not that we're, Apple TV or Amazon or whatnot, but
Yeah.
but we do hope to expand the reach of this group for this specific purpose. But maybe take some clips of the miniseries and start disseminating those as well. Of course, as we've demoed last week, and we want to remind the audience, both everyone that is here now, but also everyone that's here listening to this live stream right now, please remember and please take it to heart that the mission of this group is to expand. The mission of this group is to evangelize. I mean, I think that's the proper word, to know that we have an important truth that desperately needs to be shared, and really everyone needs to know it. It really is a truth like that. So we urge everyone to think, how can I expand this group and help this mission to succeed? Who can I share this mission with? So in that sense, growing We Are J6 is how we will enable patriots, warriors like Nick Searcy, like Brian, like Prentice, like David Summerall, like all of these patriots, help them to further succeed in the God-given missions that they're dedicated to. So that's my my reminder and my encouragement to everyone watching and listening now to please continue to join and support, but also share this. Draw your friends and family and your sphere of influence into this community and into this movement, because it really is the tip of the spear for restoring the American Republic. Like Nick said so eloquently, It's quite likely true that President Trump would not be President Trump right now if it were not for the J6 Patriots. Um, and really, this speaks to why, in my mind, I've always considered them a certain class of a hero. And I have, I've really defined that we are former defendants because we have been fully and properly legally exonerated through either the pardon mechanism. Some of us have even won exonerations in the judicial system. But either way, J6ers as a class have been exonerated. We need to take pride in that and understand who we are and how we got here. But it really is true that the spirit of patriotism and the commitment to the rule of law, and the bravery and tenacity of citizens that allowed them to travel and arrive in DC that day, and then certainly to survive and endure the horrific, totally unprecedented persecution, unprecedented in the United States of America, certainly, is extraordinary. So we're incredibly grateful and proud and encouraged by that spirit, and we want to continue fostering that, developing that, sharing that, and growing that spirit, not only to resolve delivering restorative justice for J6ers, but of course for reviving the 1776 spirit of our country and fully reclaiming our republic, top to bottom. So please think.
Well, that's one of the things that I learned in conducting all these interviews, is by meeting the people that went there that day. I mean, these are patriots. These are Christians. These are God-fearing people. And they went there that day because they knew that something wrong had happened with the 2020 election. And they went there to call attention to that. And in looking back at how they've been treated by our government, I think that is the government knew what a threat they were. They knew that by going there and calling attention to that, they had to make up this whole narrative. They had to make up this lie. They had to crush these people. They had to destroy their reputations in the community because they had to preserve the lie. And so that is really a kind of, it hasn't been explored enough as to why the government behaved the way they did towards the January 6ers. It's because they saw them as a threat. Because what the deep state, what the government, whatever you want to call it, what this entrenched bureaucracy wanted to do was make sure that they could never be challenged again and never be driven out of power. And so that's why Trump was a threat. And when the J6 community showed up to support him, they decided we have to crush these people to make sure everybody else in America understands that if you stand up to us, if you call attention to the things that we've done, this is what's going to happen to you. And so that has got to be part of the narrative that as we advance, our side of the story, we have to make sure that that is clear, that this was a deliberate thing by the government. They didn't really believe that it was an insurrection. They knew cynically that they were accusing people who loved this country and people who believed in God, and they were intentionally trying to discourage that because what they wanted to create was a totalitarian state, like they created in California, which is why I left.
Not only undermine that, but exploit it and turn it into a negative. Dr. Gold, you constantly remind folks that they raided us and stole all of our physical possessions and all sorts of things, but they collected things as evidence to prove their case that we were domestic extremists and terrorists, including pocket constitutions, that an affinity and a commitment to supporting the Constitution itself was evidence of being extremist, of being an insurrectionist. So, of course, they not only didn't actually believe that we were insurrectionists, they knew that they were fabricating a fake, a hoaxed insurrection. And in support of that, they tried to highlight decent Christian Americans and decent Americans of all faith backgrounds that support the rule of law. Very, very simple. It's the rule of law. Just like you said, Nick, they felt in their spirit. There was plenty of evidence around to suggest and to alarm the American people that there was an attack and a subversion of the rule of law related specifically to the election, which is, of course, it's like the gatekeeping point of self-governance, that we elect our own leaders. If we don't do that, we do not have constitutional governance. We certainly do not have legitimate democracy. And so, as always, the left is perverting all of our sacred values, turning them inside out to defeat them, and then blaming us and calling us the bad guys for being who we are as law-abiding and law and order supporting American citizens, American patriots who take those values and the defense of those values seriously, as our founders did.
I want to jump in again and just remind people on a very practical level that doing these 5-minute videos that John, spent a lot of time in giving instructions on how to do is going to be unbelievably helpful. Nick, for example, I'm pretty sure will watch all of them, for example, and he will find some of the most sympathetic people to highlight. Brian's right. It might not look like Brian. It might look like, the praying grandma from Texas. It might look like a doctor who they tried to get my medical license because I was there. I mean, it's insane. So he'll end up watching videos like that. The American people will watch those videos, and it will change the narrative that will help everybody in the end. We have to change the story. And I just feel kind of morally obligated. This week, last week, many times people are saying that, that they've been hiding and they haven't spoken out. I would urge you, human being to human being, to start speaking out in your life. You can start small if you're scared. You can start slow, but you need to claim your kind of dignity and self-respect for who you were as a person. And you've had to silence yourself. Listen, if you're under attack, you have to hide. I get it. It's not the path John and I did, but it's absolutely understandable. But I'm shouting from the rooftops, you don't have to hide anymore. And from this point forward, if you keep hiding, you are damaging your soul. You need to get out there and you need to speak your truth. And again, you can do it, start slow, but you will probably be very pleasantly surprised at how much support, or at the very least, non-hatred that you'll get. So I just want to encourage people on a human level to do that. And again, to submit the videos. That's really important.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. And certainly, to her point, you will absolutely find support in this community. That's what We Are J6 is for. That is exactly what we're doing, urging people to register at wearej6.com. There is a defendant registration and an advocate registration for the general public. Everyone should register. Everyone should continue to share that website and urge everyone to register and support this movement. Like Dr. Gold said, sharing your story, speaking the truth that you've experienced and that's in your heart is actually incredibly healing. It's very empowering, and it will be an integral part of the restoration process of all of us as individuals, and together as a J6 community. But as individuals and as Americans, as citizens, as patriots, we're really proud of every single one of you. Nick said it so eloquently, and it's true. I mean, this new golden age of America is only made possible by you and the sacrifice that you made. This is so beautiful. It is so reminiscent of the sacrifice of our founding fathers when they said, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Everything that they have from outside to inside, they gave it. It's incredible. So we're proud of each and every one of you. We are committed to continuing that spirit, to continuing that endeavor, and also to supporting each other, that no man will be left behind. We believe in that value. That is an American value. No man is left behind. We have continued to struggle with that value, with that priority, and we're not going to stop. So continue to join, support, unite. Please continue to register at wearej6.com. And please know we have been sending emails in response to those registrations, various emails, but specifically the request for your video materials for the persecution testimonials, which are critical. If you have not received that email yet, please make sure you re-register on the website, and you can also drop a note on our social channels. Go to the X at We Are J6 Alliance and DM us or post us that you're still looking for the video material, email if you have not received it yet. If you have, please work on that as soon as you can. And we are looking to build those stories and get them shared as soon as possible.
And I wanted to say, I want to turn back to the practical for just a moment. Many of you probably saw that blow up between Zelensky and Vance and Trump yesterday. It was kind of amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It is, I mean, obviously Zelensky never read the book, The Art of the Deal. He never paid attention to who Trump was as a person because he made like 100 different mistakes. But probably the foundational mistake is he was going into the negotiation in a very weak spot. It's his country that's losing millions of people. It's his country that needs billions of dollars in arms. And it's only Trump that could bring the peace, right? So he's in a weak spot, and he didn't go into it with that position. What does that have to do with this? Our strength in negotiating as a collective group is so much greater, which is why we go to great pains. Well, it's not just the reason we go to great pains to be inclusive. I think that's how John, myself, Brandon, and Derek are as humans. I think that is our perspective. But we just know it's in everyone's self-interest if there are responsible, inclusive, non-name calling, highly respectful people to sit across the table, not only from the future people from whom we want them to do things, right? We want them to make financial restitution. We want them to look into what TSA, FBI, DOJ did, right? That requires a kind of seriousness and kind of respectfulness in your behavior. But also we'll have to, in a way, negotiate with whichever attorneys people want to go through. If there's going to be a class action from this, people have to sit down and negotiate with the attorneys to make sure that we get exactly what we want from those attorneys as well. So the many purposes of We Are J6, but it's also to present a respectful, professional, respectable group that is able to communicate effectively with the other side. The other side ultimately is the government, but in between, it will also be the lawyers that we want to choose. So,
and in addition to the other side being the government and lawyers, the other side, to a certain degree, is also our nation, the general public, in terms of how they understand and perceive and receive J6ers as citizens, right? We were known as defendants. We've been exonerated. So I'm always specific to comment that we are former defendants and now J6 patriots. That's my preferred term. I identify as a J6 patriot, and I hope you will too. I am going to continue openly calling for Congress to establish January 6th as a national holiday called Patriots Day. I'm not kidding. I think that's actually incredibly important. We're going to be calling for a national monument to be established somewhere in Washington, D.C., perhaps in the Capitol. I'd like to see that name every single J6 former defendant, now J6 patriot. Those are important things. But all of these efforts are not possible without the truth being established, as Nick has said, and as Brian said as well. Truth first and foremost. Nothing else is possible without the truth. So we need to be able to present a respectable, authentic, and truth-based understanding and presentation of who we are as J6ers so that the nation can understand who we are. Because right now their understanding has been totally poisoned to a degree that we've never seen before. It's almost hard to comprehend or to calculate. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of work, but it's also going to take a lot of unification, coordination, some sophistication, certainly wisdom and discretion. So, Nick, would you speak to that from your perspective, especially in terms of acknowledging that there have been some mistakes and some problems, both during the last 4 years and also since the turn of events at the beginning of this year, and that we are not calling anyone names, we are not disparaging any individuals, but we are being honest and real about the need to maintain respectability and lawfulness, because the rule of law is our fundamental value here, and that we want to be really urging and calling the nation and calling J6 former defendants, calling J6 patriots specifically to unite and to hold themselves to that high standard of moral and wise behavior.
Yeah, I think we have to acknowledge that, our friends and neighbors, our Democrat friends and neighbors, the people who live around us have been propagandized. They have been brainwashed by the media that has put forward this false narrative. And so part of what we have to do to combat that is we have to combat that with the truth. That's why it's so important that these videos be made and that people tell their stories. I've been encouraging J6ers to actually write their stories, even write it into a screenplay. I mean, I think in some ways, documentaries have a certain reach, but if you made a great movie about, a J6er's story, I think that would probably reach more people than the documentaries all put together. So I've been encouraging that. And I have also been encouraged by the fact that I think more and more people are open to the idea that the government has lied to them. That was one of the hardest things when I made these documentaries. I'm living in Hollywood at the time and I make these documentaries. My agent wouldn't even watch them. I mean, he literally wouldn't even sit down and watch it. I said, you're my agent. It's kind of your job. But, they have been so propagandized that they don't even want to look at it because it might disturb their worldview. And I think as things have come on, as the events have happened, what happened with the COVID nonsense and the vaccines, and now that the pardons have happened, the whole country is, some people in the country are up in arms, how outrageous that these people were pardoned. Well, it forces them to look at, okay, why were they pardoned? Why did that happen? Why did Trump find that he needed to do that? And as Trump advances, as his administration does good things like it's been doing, I think people are going to be more and more open to the idea that their government lied to them about the January 6 people. And it's so important that we conduct ourselves in such a way that we don't give them further ammunition. And so we have to, tell our stories, get it out there, and keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble. But, this what I'm saying is, I think the country is ready to hear these stories. I think they are more open to it than they were 4 years ago.
I agree. That's a smart point, and it's quite important. So we will continue in the coming weeks at We Are J6 to understand the moment we're in and to develop strategies and to execute them on being able to share these critical stories with the country, and to fully dismantle the what I believe is a demonic false narrative, and a demonic attack on American citizens. This certainly extends past J6 former defendants. The entire nation is under an immense attack. We see that with the resurgence of President Trump and the new administration. And so we're very excited and grateful for what God is doing and what the Trump administration is doing, and that we, the people, as citizens, are now reviving our understanding of citizenship, that this is our country. We have a role to play, each and every one of us. And we're going to do that in advancing the America First agenda of President Trump, as well as delivering restorative justice specifically for J6 former defendants, with the victim recovery and government accountability. Dr. Gold, can you recap one more time the current state of affairs related to legal considerations for restitution? That is a first and foremost priority with victim recovery. There, of course, are many J6ers who are completely destitute and in dire straits at this very moment. There is j6roadhome.com. Please support Jenny Cudd and the efforts of j6roadhome.com. It's an excellent starting point for those in the worst position. There are additional organizations that we will continue to invite and involve in the We Are J6 umbrella, so that those in the worst positions can get the help and support that they critically need immediately. But we also are committed to the long game. We are also committed to the maximum potential success of this group in this effort, the maximum degree of restorative justice that we want to see delivered. And so that will involve various elements. It will involve various input. It will involve various timings, and various strategies. So I believe we'll have something much more specific to comment as soon as the live stream next week. But Dr. Gold, please speak to that so people understand we are very up to speed with the latest developments. We know the players that are out there. We understand that many people in the We Are J6 group already here listening and participating have heard different things, and some have even been directly contacted. And so we want to encourage you that there are very good developments, but there are a lot of different people saying a lot of different things, and we're going to try to help distill that for you so you understand that in the best possible way, so that we can make the best choice for ourselves as individuals and understand how to try to unify that course of action as well.
Yes, I think the most important thing is to know that none of the four of us, and then all the other people we've brought in, intend to do anything without letting the group know. I mean, I've said that before. I just want to say it again. I, as a lawyer, am spending my time talking with everybody I can think of in the legal space who's connected, and some people who maybe are not connected, who are just really solidly good lawyers, to find out what the range of legal possibilities are. And we are asking you to just, trust us that our intention is to make this good for the entire community. I myself have not signed on with any lawyer at this point. I think the day is coming closer that I personally will decide to do that. When I've made my own decision, I'm going to speak to this group and explain my reasons, and I likely will suggest to you that you do the same thing that I'm doing for myself. That's how I practice medicine. I treat people like I would treat myself or my own mother. So I am going through a lot of questions, a lot of due diligence. Finding the right attorneys for this, for me, that's how you win or lose this. You have to find attorneys that are not going to be twiddling their thumbs, drafting the most perfect legal brief because they think this is going to see the inside of a courtroom. That is not the intent. The intent is to have a settlement with a friendly negotiation, but to have that negotiation from a position of power. If we go in weak and like, oh, please give us some crumbs, sir, then we're going to get crumbs. So you have to go with lawyers who understand the political game, ideally that they're politically connected, also very savvy, can write the good legal briefs, can put together a lot of people. So this is not easy and it's not short. I have spoken with many good attorneys. There are many, many variables, and I don't feel comfortable yet saying where I think I'm going, but I think I'm pretty close to making a decision. And if that's the case, if it's going to go the way I think I would recommend, I believe I will be able to say something next week, explain my reasons why I've made the choice I've made, and likely I would encourage everybody to join me in this choice. I've said it ad nauseum, the more we stand together, the better we all will be. I will be better, John will be better, Brian will be better, every J6 defendant will be better if we work together. But just know that it's complicated because you're not just looking for a law firm. You're looking for a law firm that can be an excellent lawyer. Three things, I think. Excellent lawyer, like they have to know the legal mechanism, the vehicle by which the DOJ is going to take you seriously. So that's just, being a good lawyer. Number two, ideally being connected to the president or his people. That's would be an amazing advantage. I've been cognizant of that since the beginning. And number three is not a lawyer or law firm who's going to overly legalize, analyze this to death, because we all believe it's a political solution. I can tell you that that's difficult. And I've, in my mind, already turned down a few folks who are excellent attorneys, believe in us, they're on our side, but I can see ahead that they're going to make this difficult to get to a negotiated agreement. I just wanted you to know that I spent a lot of time thinking about this and a lot of time talking with people about this, and my efforts are on all of our behalfs, me being just one of the 1,500 of us. And I will give you my best analysis when I'm very close to making a decision, and I'm closer than I ever was.
And Dr. Gold, I saw a comment related to, so we're going on our own and not doing a class action now. In fact, I'm going to just show this comment real briefly.
I just saw that. Absolutely no decision. In an ideal world, looking at this from the outside, not emotionally invested, obviously bringing a class action on behalf of 1,500 people is more powerful than not. So I just want you to know that, like, off the top, if you have a choice, bringing a class action, though, is difficult. There's there are just inherent legal difficulties. Do we all qualify as a class? By the way, we don't qualify as a class because we say we're a class or we feel like a class. Obviously, we feel like a class. The question is if the judge sees it like that. And then the question is, are we even going to get to a judge? Because we don't want to get to a judge. We want to have a negotiated settlement. So it's very, very challenging. So 100%, no decisions have been made yet. There's going to be complete transparency from us to you. The only reason I'm not discussing it more is I haven't made up my own mind yet. So all options are still on the table. And but that means some of the lawyers I'm talking with have a lot of experience in class action litigation. It's called complex class litigation. It's complicated. The vast majority of lawyers don't do that kind of litigation. It's quite difficult. But if it looks like class action is not the best way to go, or that the DOJ won't take us seriously as a class, then we're going to have to make a different decision. So
And
that's the best answer
I
I
would
can give.
thank you, Dr. Gold. I would also say to that question and to that general topic that our understanding has always been there's a very high likelihood that we will proceed in some sort of a class type manner, that not being the same thing as a formal class action lawsuit. There may actually be
Could
a
I?
formal class action
Yeah,
lawsuit,
I'm
but
sorry. Yeah, I have to back up a little bit because you're right. I took that as a legal question, like, is this going to be class action? Even if it turns out that the best legal option is not an actual class action, there still will be lawsuits where we would hope to negotiate a settlement that would cover everyone, because we don't want everyone to have to bring lawsuits. It's a nightmare. We want to avoid that for people. We want to get a negotiated settlement for the DOJ, for the J6 class that covers everyone. That's the intent. Does it look legally like a class action, or does it look like that the DOJ set aside, a pot of money and restitution and other goals, right? The goal is no man left behind. The legal mechanism to get there is yet to be determined.
well said. Thank you, Dr. Gold. And yeah, I think as she mentioned, the legal strategies are complex and have not been determined exactly yet, but our mindset is representing the class and also inviting everyone and as many people as are willing to participate, because there's no obligation or pressure here. This is simply a First Amendment free speech association that brings us together under the umbrella of We Are J6. But we've always invited as many people to consider joining that as possible, because as Dr. Gold has stated, we're so much more effective
Yeah,
together.
sorry, John. I keep thinking things. I'm sorry about the background noise. I can't emphasize enough that no matter what the legal vehicle is, the absolute intent of our strategic alliance is that individuals will be in a better position because of, even if it's a smaller group that takes legal efforts. If it's not a class action, it would be because we got a settlement pot that would cover everybody. That we want to avoid people having to bring lawsuits and go through the hassle of that if we possibly can. And you have our word for sure that at no time do we ever forget that there's 1,500 plus of us, that it's not just 4 of us or 6 of us or 10 of us. That is not how we see it. You have my word.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Gold. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. We really appreciate you. I just want to ask Nick if you would have any closing comments here before we wrap up, just particularly on the note of really acknowledging some of the difficulties that we've experienced recently with some controversy, just calling all Americans to uphold the legitimate rule of law, and how to call together the J6 community specifically on these efforts as we proceed into the coming weeks, both with sharing our stories and advancing these conversations with lawyers and the Trump administration, and delivering on some of these specific items. So,
yeah, I think it's so important that we find a way to hang together here, because there has been some infighting. I've seen it. I'm sure you've all seen it. And this person is not a true patriot, and that person is a grifter, and that sort of thing. I think we have to kind of, at this point, put that behind us and unify around the idea that the point is to get the actual truth out there and to try to make people whole whose lives have been destroyed. And I think we could all unify around that idea. We have to sort of find a way to stop the infighting, to hang together as a group. And I think that more and more we're going to move in that direction. I think that's very important, and I don't think we get where we want to be if we don't do that.
Absolutely agreed. Did you have any other closing comments, Dr. Gold? You're good. Okay. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, for participating. Thank you for your grace with the background noise. I apologize for that. And again, please register at wearej6.com. Please tell everyone you know about the mission to deliver restorative justice. Please urge them to register at wearej6.com. And also, of course, follow us and track us on social media, particularly on X at WeAreJ6 Alliance. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next Saturday at 12 noon Eastern. The mission continues. We love you. And we encourage you that God is good, he is faithful. We are restoring one nation under God back to our country. And we just ask God that you would bless the United States of America and each and every patriot involved in this project. We love you all, and we'll see you next week. God bless.